Welcome back to This Week in Bevy. This week, Bevy gains a new catch-all error type called BevyError, which gets built into the new Bevy Result type alias. And more Bevy APIs get result return values. In the showcases, we see a few tower defense games and a number of submissions to the Code for a Cause jam. Meanwhile, Settletopia, the multiplayer open-world fantasy colony sim, also lands its Steam page this week. So first, let's talk about BevyError, Bevy's new catch-all error type. In 0.16, Bevy is moving towards more result-oriented error handling for systems, observers, and other things. 18.144 introduces a brand new catch-all BevyError type, which improves error reporting in a similar way to crates like anyhow behave. This new error type has been integrated into Bevy's result type alias, making it possible to write a function that returns just that result. Continuing on the error path, 18.082 additionally brings a result return type to query single and query single mute. The old getSingle functions are now deprecated, now that Bevy has result handling capabilities built in. And one-to-many relationships already made it into 0.16, and 18.087 brings directed one-to-one relationships. The example in the PR constructs an above and below one-to-one relationship where above is the source of the information. This is actually a really important note that this is actually an asymmetrical relationship, which means that one component in the relationship is the source of truth. In this example, as we discussed, it's above. Adding above to an entity causes the below component to be added to the other entity automatically, similar to how one-to-many relationships work. But adding below does not cause the above component to be added because above is the source of truth and below just follows that. The world of relationships is obviously still early as 0.16 hasn't gotten a release yet, so hopefully in the future we could see fully symmetrical relationships. And as always, Alice's merge train is a maintainer level view into active PRs and how the Bevy sausage is made. Interesting note this week is that the merge train is over on Blue Sky this week. And kicking off the showcases is Settletopia. Settletopia is the multiplayer open world fantasy colony sim that now has a Steam page and a new showcase video. Wishlist now to develop a small settlement into a thriving multi-settlement civilization that spans the world. And Abysm is an action puzzle game inspired by Boulder Dash. It was originally an entry for the Bevy Spooky Jam last fall, and the current goal is to turn this portion of the game, or the first portion of the game, into a demo. The game, as you can see here, is playable over on itch.io. Meanwhile, Keep the Keep Moving is an entry for the Code for a Cause jam, where you have to keep the keep moving and avoid the grass while shooting at these little enemies. And next up, we've got a work in progress cell shading. This is a side-by-side comparison of a normal PBR render compared to a work in progress cell shading. The cell shading in this case is implemented as an extended material that uses a 1D texture to map the PBR light to the flat light. And the triangles in this demo are being ray traced in a fragment shader. This is ray traced constructive solid geometry. The geometry represented by the wireframe is a tight outer bound for the true shape. And this is our first tower defense game for the week. The base mechanics for this tower defense style game, where you program the towers yourself, the numeric calculation bits for that programming were programmed first, resulting in the ability to calculate pi, as you can see here. And then we've got some 3D modeling software powered by signed distance fields. We've actually seen some of these demos in past issues, and the application itself is a combination of a Bevy application and Electron. Our next tower defense game is up. This tower defense game is the author's first ever game. Implemented functionality includes waves of enemies, a tower building system, and gold rewards to upgrade towers. The current assets are from a pack on itch.io, but they are planning to replace them. And here's a look at the base building mechanics to an RTS game. This game uses dynamic flow fields that update anytime an object is spawned. The little tank uses those flow fields to navigate around the placed buildings. A preview of the flow field logic is available over on GitHub. And we've seen this sand engine before, but this is falling sand and particles in that custom sand engine built with Bevy ECS and a custom Lua integration. And it's always fun to see particle effects a little bit overdone, so I'm going to show you the second demo for that one as well. Next up, we have planet generation with simplex noise and smooth normals. The implemented algorithm works for any planet radius, noise amplitude, and noise octave, and is now almost ready to be dropped into a full-sized planet. Bevy eGUI, IES-PerfUI, and Bevy Editor Cam are used to build this demo. And this is a set of pixel planets rendered into a video. Next up in the pixel planets is to procedurally generate solar systems from them. If you want to generate your own pixel planets, there are tools listed on the website, including a Bevy port, so go check that out. And Grand Theft Auto 2 is a top-down game from 1999, and this is a map viewer for the full maps. This project was partially helped along by Blender to render the different block type meshes and the project is open source on GitHub. This next one is a minimalistic game reminiscent of a Super Meat Boy or an old Flash game. The textures break up into their pixels when hit, yielding a satisfying explosion that, in my opinion, fits the minimal aesthetic. This really reminds me of some old Flash games I used to play. So while the author sounds like they might upgrade the graphics, I kind of like this version. And then we've got a procedural animation of a snake based on a YouTube video in 2 languages. The first one is Rust and Bevy, that's on the left, and the second is Odin and Raylib. And that brings us into the crate section. This week we're starting off with BeatFlow 005. BeatFlow is scenes as control flow. Use the same scene graph you're used to define modular behaviors. And then we've got Bevy UI Anchor 0.5. Bevy UI Anchor supports anchoring UI elements to specific points or entities in the world, as you can see here on this curve. And Bevy Mod OpenXR got its 0.2 release this week. This is Bevy support for OpenXR. XR here stands for extended reality, such as augmented reality or virtual reality. And then we've got Seldom State. Seldom State is a plugin that adds a state machine component that you can add to your entities. The state machine will change the entity's components based on states, triggers, and transitions that you define, which can be useful for AI, animations, rigid body controllers, and more. And Bevy Mod Async is an attempt at a more ergonomic async abstraction for Bevy built on Bevy's executor. The entire crate is built around task context, which is the primary API for interacting with the ECS in an asynchronous manner. And then we've got Bevy Streaming, which is an interesting crate. This will allow you to stream Bevy's camera to a streaming server through WebRTC with ultra-low latency, and then play the game through a simple browser or phone. This is what's known as cloud gaming. And finally, we've got Bevy Gamepad, which replaces GIL-RS with the Apple Game Controller framework on macOS and iOS. This can be useful if you want to support Switch Pro controllers and 8-bit do Switch compatible controllers. And that is it for this week. As always, we have all the pull requests that were merged and open this week over on the website. So if you want to take a look at them yourself or get involved with the issues, definitely go check them out on the website. And I'll see you next week.